Hi everybody. In this video I'm showcasing one of my training partners' particular strokes. In this case it's Colin Bowler's backhand hit with his long pimples. The reason why I really wanted to give you guys a look at this is two basic reasons. Firstly, he's using a technique that I don't really use in matches. He's using a much flatter stroke through the ball. So I wanted to give you a look at somebody who's actually doing that stroke in matches and doing it quite well. Which brings me to the second point. Colin didn't use this stroke very much. He's using a standard Stiga defensive blade, I think Mark 5 1.5mm on the forehand, and he's using a sheet of TSP curl P1-R with no sponge on the backhand. So what you'll see is that, or when he started to do it, he decided he wanted to be a little bit more aggressive on the backhand side. The first few weeks of him trying to hit a little bit more with his long pips on the backhand, he was struggling to find the right angle. So he would tend to hit one good one that went off by a long way, one into the bottom of the net or onto the table. So the first few weeks were a bit like that. The last couple of weeks he's been getting the bat angle a lot better. The previous session with him, he was hitting it quite well, and it was very, very tough for me to handle. So I thought in this session I'd bring along the camera and give you a look at actually how he's now performing this stroke, because he's using it in a very different way to the way I use my long pips. He's using it as an aggressive, flat drive, coming at you very, very quickly, typically with a little bit of backspin on the ball. And what that means is, as when I'm trying to handle it or deal with it, firstly, it's tough to deal with because it's quick. Secondly, even if I'm trying to loop it, the ball has got this backspin on it, so it means I have to change my bat angle and try and lift it, and it really does make it very hard to handle in a fast-paced rally. It's a very difficult stroke to deal with. So I wanted to give you a bit of a look at it from that point of view, and also just from the point of view that Colin has basically over the last 6 weeks decided that he had this area in this game he wanted to improve, worked on it once a week. He only really plays once a week against me, so in the course of about 5 sessions he's gone from someone who was struggling to find the right bat angle basically, and also because he was using it as a new stroke, he was overplaying it a little bit too much, using it when he should have been hitting his forehand. But in the course of about 5 or 6 sessions, he's now found the right mix. He's using it when he should and not running around his forehand to hit his backhand too much. He's found the right bat angle, and it's become a very, very difficult stroke. And it's a stroke that I really thought he would struggle. I didn't think you'd be able to drive like this with long pips aggressively and flat. So it's also something I think I'm going to have to look at trying to use myself every now and again, because I know when he's using it against me, I really do hate it. So I'm going to give you a few clips to look at. I'm going to not talk over the clip, and the reason why is because he's using long pips with no sponge, you can hear the different sound. And because it's in a quiet hall, you can actually hear quite well when he's hitting flat through the ball, when he's brushing it a little bit more and making softer contact, because the sounds are quite different. So keep an ear out for that. One final thing to mention is you may see me playing just a little bit differently here. Don't worry too much about me, but because one of my rubbers, I'm waiting on some replacements, I needed to use a black rubber on the forehand, which is the black Fortissimo. I don't have any red long pimples, so all I had was a red anti-spin. So I thought I would try out this red anti-power again from an aggressive close to the table play. Against Colin it went quite well. Later on in the night I played some other people, and the anti-spin, although the control is better, the effects are less. And I needed to be very, very aggressive with it in order to actually make it effective. Some of the safer stuff I played with long pips that wobbles a little bit or has different effects, Once my opponent got used to the different pace, basically with anti-spin, no good. So I found with this rubber I had to really be very, very aggressive, hitting, pressuring all the time. So you'll just see there's a couple of clips of me at the end hitting with the anti-spin. But on the whole, wasn't too bad. But I think I'd still prefer my the long pits with no sponge. So let's have a look at Colin hitting these strokes. I'm going to shut up, and then I'll have a couple of words just to say at the end, just talking about general techniques and other things. So away you go, have a look.
tail. Oh, yeah.
Alright, so as you can see from the demonstration there of Colin playing during our training matches, this technique, although I originally thought Colin would probably struggle, I thought it would be a low percentage shot for him because technically I've always really believed that trying to drive the ball with long pimples would be a low percentage option. But within the space of a very short time, Colin's managed to make this into a good weapon, and he's gaining consistency now with it. And instead of missing a lot, he's actually very either getting it on or it's very close. So I've had to rethink my thoughts on it, and I'm definitely going to start looking at maybe doing a little bit of driving through the ball more aggressively myself as another option. I'm not going to stop rolling the ball with my long pips. I'm just going to take a look at whether I can hit through a few more. Now I'm going to just leave some slow-mo running so you can look at Colin's in slow-mo just while I talk about a few other thoughts. Firstly, if you go back pay attention, I guess, to the slow-mo as it's running. But I'd suggest maybe going back and having another look at Colin playing in normal speed. But take a look, you'll see Colin using a mix of techniques during his hitting. He sometimes, on the return of serve, he's using sometimes a push, sometimes a little flick. Not a big wrist flick, but just enough of a flick to get the ball over. He's blocking with the dead bat. He's occasionally rolling the ball, not quite a drive, but just sort of that softer roll against a topspin. Then he's flat hitting as well, and of course chopping the ball. Sometimes all in the same rally. Good things to take note of Colin's technique is that there's nothing fancy, there's nothing complicated about his techniques. There's no big flourishes in the swing. There's nothing inefficient. It's basically get yourself balanced, get yourself in position, and play the simplest stroke that does the job. So nothing, nothing extra added to the ball. Now part of that, I guess, is also because Colin's not necessarily a close to the table attacker. He's not looking to make the ball wobble a lot anyway, so he's not doing a lot of those flourishes that you normally see. But as an example of good, clean, basic technique used very effectively, Colin's a great example to follow. A couple of other little things that I'll just mention that I noticed on watching through the video again myself. Colin uses depth. His positioning in terms of where he stands in or out depth of the court is much better than mine. I get sucked in a little bit too close to the table, whereas Colin always seems to be more or less at the right depth. Also, you'll notice in terms of during the rally, watch Colin's forward lean, and you'll find he's almost always got that little bit of forward lean helping him stay balanced. I still have a tendency during these rallies to start out with a forward lean and come up right. And again, have another listen through. Listen for those sounds of the ball. You really can hear the way that Colin is sometimes driving the ball very flat, and you can hear that real crack of the bat, versus sometimes brushing it a little bit more, and the sound is softer. Now that's even more effective in a noisy hall where the opponent can't hear it. But for our purposes, it's great because it really does allow you to hear how often he's hitting it very flat, versus how much he's sometimes rolling the ball. But again, it's just really, I think, a great example here of something that I can't demonstrate, I think, all that well in a match, but something that he's decided to use. He's implemented it consistently over the last 5-6 weeks. It's now starting to pay dividends. And the technique is, again, very simple, very clean. And I thought for those of you guys who are trying to drive through on that backhand with the long pips, it's a pretty good example to follow. And it shows that somebody who has good basic techniques can bring in a new stroke quickly, just using the principles he's learned in the past. So again, thanks for watching.